Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good day. My name is Kenneth Ray Coleman Jr. Don't forget the Junior, and you are tuned in to the Let's Talk About It podcast. We are on season 3, episode number 2. We thank you for blessing us with a listen. We got a special treat in store for you today. I got one of my good friends. I've been knowing him for a long time. I just call him an all around amazing person. I like to call her Whitehaven's finest. We got Miss Candace on the line. Y'all welcome her. She's gonna be y'all new friend. Y'all gonna be trying to claim her after this podcast, but y'all can't have her. So we're gonna make it do. We'll do what it do. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I can't complain.
It's always good. I thank you for blessing me to be on this episode. This episode is I got my guards up and not ready for whatever.
Hmm.
So we're just gonna go ahead and dive into it and let's have a fun conversation and let's see where it takes us. So if we had to go ahead and define what is having your guards up, what does that look like? What does that feel like to you?
It's a defense mechanism. If you have your guards up, you probably experienced something that just gave you pause. You don't want to experience that again. And so you put barriers, basically barriers of entry. That's what I would say your guards are.
Yeah, I feel that. I like that. I would say having the guards up, I would say it's always, as you said, a defense, but always also ready to react to whatever. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes the good and bad thing with having your guards up is that you're on defense for whatever, and sometimes that's good comes to you, and sometimes it's bad comes to you, but you're always on defense. So um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's one of them things. It's one of them
If
things.
your guards are up, you're probably too defensive, maybe.
Mm, I like that. I like that. Yeah, we're gonna touch on something that is a little interesting. What would you say there's do you say as a negative or a positive thing or indifferent thing us having your guards up?
It's both. Because again, it's a defense mechanism, right? So you created it for a reason. But usually, if you set that wall up, you keep everybody out, so you are protecting yourself from that thing that you don't want, but you're probably also detouring that thing you do want as well. So it can go both ways. It helps, but it hurts you at the same time.
So, everybody talking about healing and how important healing is having your guards up just a remedy to just go start healing process? Or, I mean, or is it a little bit more complicated than that? But
Well, I mean, it could be a factor in your healing process. I guess, it's just a matter of if it's healing, it's you're probably doing it in a healthy way. Whereas if it can be unhealthy too. So you probably have guards up or more guards up, you know, until you get to a healthy part. And then you'll let some of them down. And it'll be more like a screen than a guard when
right,
it's in a
right.
healthy place.
So do you think there's any kind of misconceptions about having your guards up?
No, not really. I think the main thing is a lot of people who have guards, they may not realize it, so they're the ones that have the misconception because they feel like they're just protecting themselves
Mhm.
when, like I said, they could be hurting themselves. So I guess it doesn't have to be all bad, but
Right, right.
it definitely can be bad.
Misconception. I think one of the misconceptions about having your guards up is that um, sometimes we feel like it. Sometimes we feel like it's a defense mechanism, but it's really an offensive mechanism because
Mm.
what it is that it keeps us proactively doing something to not be on the defensive, to not get hurt, to make sure that okay, if subconsciously I feel like I'm going to get hurt with dealing with this person, this environment, this relationship, or whatever. So let me hit you and hurt you before I get hurt if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm not saying most times, all times. I'm just saying sometimes. That could be a misconception. So you brought up protection. So do you think is there a difference between protection and having your guards up?
Yeah, I think protection is probably the bigger thing, and a guard is just one way of protecting yourself. So, yeah, I think a guard is part of your protection, but it's not necessarily the same because you can protect yourself in other ways.
I think having your guards up is you eliminate everybody from coming against you, whatever environment. And let me explain that a little bit better. I think when people say I got my guards up, it does not matter what person is around, what environment is around. They just have this defense mechanism. When you're
Mhm.
protecting something, you're only protecting it, or you're only going to take care of it when you feel like it's in harm. So if someone says, let me protect your heart, I only have to protect it when we're in an uncomfortable environment, or when we're around uncomfortable people that may do something to this. But when you're protecting something, you can take moments off. You can take days off. When you're guarding something, you're on alert 24/7, like 365. You're always thinking something is going to happen or something is around the corner. So protection, you have off moments. Guard, when you're on guard, it's always on the clock. You're always on the clock. So
Right, right. I agree.
so the title of the podcast is I got my guards up and I'm not ready for whatever. But do you
Mhm.
think you can have your guards up and be ready for whatever?
I like to think that because I think that's the category that I put myself in, right? I have guards up, but at the same time, if I trusted someone or if I felt comfortable, then I would be ready for whatever, right? So
Mhm.
I would like to think that you can do both. I could be in, denial or or something,
Right,
but
right.
yes, I would like to think so.
I think, and I could be wrong. I don't think you can be ready for whatever. And the only reason I say, and I'm not speaking personally, I'm just saying this is just my thought pattern. You
Hmm.
know, um, I think ready, sometimes we have been conditioned to think of it as the perfect circumstances, the perfect situation, the environment. And I think ready is just you're consistently ready to make a choice to do whatever. And sometimes if we have our guards up, sometimes we can't make a choice to be open to this new environment. We can't be open to this new person is because sometimes we have to have tangible proof that something is real,
Hmm.
opposed to the vibe and energy and the environment that it's real. And so
Hmm.
sometimes when you don't have that tangible proof, you can't. I feel like, and I'm not saying this is most to everybody. It just me and my experience is that I haven't been ready when I have my guards up because you can't do both. To me, like I can't be on alert for somebody is going to harm me and then say, let me be open to this new experience, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I hear you, but why can't you be both? So does that mean you are automatically green if you go into because it's the way you say it, it kind of sounds like I'm either guarded or I'm just completely vulnerable. It's like, what is that in between?
I ain't found that in between yet. Because for me, it's like,
Because you have to have, to some degree, you got to have a little bit of both, right? Because there are too many people out here who will take advantage of whatever crack they see, right? And I think a lot of us have those guards up because we've been a victim of that circumstance, you
right.
know, where you're wide open, you're open to the experience, and then boom, you get hit and you're like, ah, man. And you may even do it a few times. And after a few times, you're like, look, now, I'm not going to keep just going into things fully vulnerable. You got to have some type of protections, right? Do you not need to see something from the other person other than just a vibe, because you can vibe with a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that they take you seriously or that you should take them seriously.
Right. I think for me, my like my guards or slash my protection is only up when I know what environment I'm in. When I deal with people, I think DMX had that quote where he said, "I trust people to be who they are or who they shown me to be."
Mm-hmm.
So if someone has shown me that who they are, I don't have any unrealistic expectations. I really don't have any expectations, or they don't have the ability to let me down because I know that this person right here has shown me that my vulnerability is not something that they value, so I choose not to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm around them, let's just say it's a family member. If I'm around that family, like all of our conversations are surface level stuff. So that's what I mean when I say that I got my guards up. My guards are mostly up to people that I have to deal with who may have disappointed me already or who may have hurt me.
And so you go right into it completely vulnerable. And you what? It's like as they show you something that causes concern, that's where the guards come.
Yes, when I start a friendship or a relationship, I started like a blank canvas
Mm-hmm.
and we painted together.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when people start relationships, especially friendships, that's why you hear everybody saying, no new friends and no woo woo and boo boo boo. But most times they start painting from an already painted picture that they're just
Mm-hmm.
bringing into this new environment. So when you're painting over something else, sometimes every once in a while it may come out as a masterpiece, but 9 times out of 10, it's gonna come out as something ugly. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I go into it starting with the blank canvas, and then we paint it together. We make it do. I'm intentional, not bringing no other bull crap from a previous friendship or a previous relationship. It's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in counseling every other week. Trying to because I want to be intentional with creating the environment, creating my circumstances, creating the relationships that I'm looking for. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's me.
I do the same. We start with a blank canvas, but now I do have kind of like protections along the way. So it's like it's a blank canvas, but because it's a blank canvas, I'm not going to get too deep,
Mm,
because I don't know what this picture is going to look like.
right.
So I think my guards are more me being reserved. Yeah, they can show me who they are. And then I'm not so quick to believe it either, you know. I'm not so quick to believe the first thing you show me, especially in the beginning, because I really think it takes time to get to see that real person. There's this mask the first month, two, maybe even three. I'll say definitely the first month. When you're first talking, you've just been out a few times. Oh, that person is great, right? Your conversations are awesome. You're on the phone all night, all that good stuff, right? They don't show you that little offside until they get comfortable.
Right,
So,
right.
I'm not so quick to trust the picture that you show me. And that's my guard, or maybe part of my guard is like, okay, yeah, well, this sounds good, looks good, like we'll see.
And then
Yeah.
I love the conversation between men and women when it comes to dating, friendships, relationships, because you have that take. And for me, it's like when a woman shows me who she is, sometimes I choose not to believe it because I feel like you're a product of everything that happened to you. That's not who God created you to be, if
So
that
you're
makes
saying
sense.
someone could show you red flags, but you believe it's a defense mechanism and not the red flag. Like you say, that's just their guard.
Right,
That's not,
right, 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 right.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
healthy as hell. I mean, not healthy. Pray my strength to the Lord. I'm working on it. God and
yeah,
my therapist has shown me some stuff, but and so it's an interesting situation to say the least. But
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I guess everybody has their ways, right? We all
mhm.
defend ourselves in different ways. Mine is more like I just don't necessarily trust you, you know?
Right, right.
don't know how to get out over that or past that. It's like, eh. You like I said, you got to show me basically, but then how does a person show you? And then also what I see a lot through social media, which you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. But what I find is the silly stuff that we see on social media is really seeping into people's actual way of thinking, you
Right.
know? So, like you're saying, people tell you something and you don't believe them. I see where a lot of people put way too much into small things, little things, you know?
Right. Right.
It's like they'll judge your whole character off where you want to eat on your first date, or I don't know, maybe how
Yeah.
much money
Yeah.
you make or what job you have. It's like there are there's so much that people take from just the smallest things that don't really mean anything at all. You know, I had this guy, he said, I told him, I said, well, if a first date, if a guy told me like I had to pay for my own first date, that would just kind of, it wouldn't sit right for me. Now we don't have to go anywhere nice. We could literally go to for some ice cream or coffee, or shoot, if you don't want to pay for anything, we can maybe go for a walk or something. But if we went somewhere and you're like, oh no, or if that's our first conversation, you're telling me I don't pay for first dates. To me, that's a red flag,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
And so, but to him, if I'm not okay with it, that's also a red flag. He's looking at me like, okay, well, you must just be after me for my money. You want to use me. And I'm thinking, well, you must not think much of me if you couldn't even pay for a cup of coffee,
Right.
So
Right.
we're both making judgments off of something kind of small, right? And we'll never get to know the other person's character because we both kind of said, right there.
And I think, sometimes we don't even know how hurt we are until we come across somebody who has the potential of liking us in a correct way. Because for a man, most men don't understand how hurt they have been by money wise with women until they come across a woman who doesn't need them for their money.
Mm-hmm.
If a man cannot offer you anything emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and of those natures, then we become insecure with who we are because we're so used to being able to provide. And now, women have education, women have more money, they're making more money, they're, independent, self-sufficient, they are able to do these things. And so when men come around and we want to say, well, she don't need me for my money, what else she need me for? Because we haven't did the work
Right.
internally to be able to offer or bring something else to the table outside of our status, outside of our position, outside of our money and materialistic things. And now she's saying, what else you got?
Right.
And now,
Right.
and one thing they do is one thing both sexes do is that when you realize that I can't offer you anything, now I have to belittle you or I have to make you feel bad for your expectations because it ain't my fault. I'm not to blame. You know,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing right now with guys thinking that I see a lot of guys building that defense mechanism where they feel like a woman is just using them for their money. In the process, though, like I said, it's the catch 22 is that the woman, if you took certain aspects away from the dating or the courting phase, then she's not going to feel appreciated or like you're genuinely interested in her. It's like, oh, you just want me to be, you know, I don't know, you just want me to kind of go for anything. You want me to
right,
accept less than to show you that I'm more, you want me to accept less. And if she is doing things on her own, then it's like, well, why would I take a step down to prove to you anything? Why would she
right,
do that? And he's like, well, why do you need my money? I don't need your money, but I do want you to approach me like you said, there's more to a man than his money. And I think men need to understand that because they're putting themselves in these boxes, you know, because I've also seen the other way around where the guy has money and he doesn't understand why he can't keep a woman, you know, or why the woman's not really interested because he puts so much emphasis on that money that he's not really a good person, you know.
Mm,
He dismisses her. He doesn't doesn't he uses her more like a candy
trophy,
arm.
trophy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
trophy. He's not respecting her mind, her value, whatever she may bring to the table. And like you said, he may actually diminish what she brings because it's not money. I don't need your money. You
Right.
know, that's what you'll hear the guy say, right? But I mean, she's more than money, and you are too. She's more than her body, and you are too. And people have to get to a place where they are considerate, compassionate.
Ooh,
You
can you
know,
say that word again?
those are really the things that we're looking for. You know, that's what the man and the woman, they're both saying. They want someone who's considerate, you know, someone who values them, right? And you got to take all that other stuff out the table and be able to show and express that part of you. The parts that show I can be a good companion, you know. Sorry.
You
My
preaching. What's your cash app? I'm gonna send you a little something. I'm gonna send you a little something. You preaching. You done touched my soul. Glory be to God. Yes, Lord.
yeah.
But I think one of the things that that I said earlier is that that's why it's important to start with a blank canvas.
Mm-hmm.
Because if a man comes in and he says, well, if he's bringing the residuals of what he just got out of into the new space, he's possibly missing out on a blessing that's going to turn into an opportunity. And it's a difference between a blessing and an opportunity. Um, I go and explain it real quick, but an opportunity is just something for the moment or something for a few moments. It could be good, bad, or anything in between. But a blessing is something that's from God that only God can take the credit for. And what I mean is that sometimes there's blessings that come into our lives that are from unexpected people, unexpected places, unexpected times, and he just give it to you and you like, oh my God, it just feels so amazing, it's so amazing. But an opportunity is just something that comes that to make you feel good in that moment. It may make you feel some type of way in that moment. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we turn a blessing because we're not ready for it into an opportunity. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that we have to be careful about. And sometimes when our guards are up, everything becomes an opportunity because we don't believe in the blessings anymore. And that's
Right.
and sometimes that's why it's important to let the guards down. And sometimes we have to create the space and the environment that ourselves that we give ourselves off moments, that we give ourselves off days. And so now we can bring people around us that complements that energy. Like I don't always have to be the go-to. I don't always have to be the strong friend. I don't have to always be the strong family member, or I don't always have to be the one at work that everybody goes to with the answers, with the questions. Like until I create that for myself and I know what that looks like, I know what that feels like, then I never have people around me that will complement what's already there.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when you say looking for the opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, but what, or I don't, maybe I'll expound a little bit, and you could be going a whole different way, so tell me. But I do also see where people are looking for what they can get out of the situation. Like they're only, and this is not just women, this is men and women. It's like, oh, okay, this person has A, B, and C.
Right.
And I feel like they're a good catch because I can get A, B, and C if I'm with them or if I'm connected to them in some type of way. And
Right.
so that I see that as one of those opportunistic type of things where if you're going into a relationship, you probably should be thinking more about what you can bring. Or like if I'm looking at a person or if I'm assessing the person, it's like, how can I compliment them
Right.
versus
Right. Right.
what can I get from them? And I really think people need to just really change that whole mindset, that whole opportunistic kind of way. And it's not to say that you gotta assess a person, right? You kind of gotta assess the good and the bad. You have to,
Hmm.
because you don't want to walk into a situation that's not good for you. But you also don't want to walk into a situation not realizing how you both can benefit each other because it's got
Right.
to be benefit each other. It can't be really one sided, really, you know?
I think one of the questions that we don't ask in the beginning is like I started this interview. I asked you, how did you define your guards being up? I don't think a lot of times we really dive into or have a conversation with people that we date, people that we're in relationships with, married to. What is your definition of how a successful, a healthy relationship looks like? Because
Mhm.
some people look at relationships and marriage as partnership. Some people look at it as roommates. Some people look at it as whatever. And
Mhm.
if we don't have these comfortable or uncomfortable conversations in the beginning, we become emotionally invested and attached to people that have a total um, different definition of how we define what relationship and marriage looks like.
Right, right.
And so now
Yeah,
we moving different.
yeah. Yeah, because you know what? I talked to this one guy and his definition of well, his attitude towards relationships is regardless what I do, regardless what I put you through, if you were really down for me, you would stick around. So if you don't stick around through the cheating and the bullshit, then that's a bad reflection on you. So
Right,
okay, right there, that's the one that lets you know, okay, you need to walk away. Like you said, that's
right.
not my idea of 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 what staying down is, right? If I can stay down, but I can't stay down through that. You know, it's like okay, you're not gonna intentionally harm me. You know,
And and that's the
or
like
expect
the general.
harm me. You already know then,
Right,
in the
right.
beginning. So
And those are the generational, curses and generational cycles that have been embedded into us, by our grandparents, great grandparents, all of them. It's just like a man says, and we have to redefine what it looks like because I feel like the woman that is for me, she would be willing to go through any and everything with me. But I value her so much that I work on myself today that certain things we don't have to go through. We we
right,
w- we would never have to experience. Like
right.
I know my woman would probably stay with me if I cheated on her, but I ain't finna cheat on her. I've,
Hmm.
I've curbed that desire or that's not in my appetite of something that attracts me or that's something that will entice me when I'm in a relationship.
Yeah, I feel like the problem should come from the outside and not the
Yes.
inside. You
Right,
know,
right.
you lose your job, okay, baby, we're gonna get through this. You get sick,
Yeah.
okay, we got this. I don't know, kids cutting up, the mortgage is past due, those types of issues. It should be us against the world, not us against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
totally agree with that, you know. But unfortunately, we don't have these conversations, and for some people, these are not desires that they have. Everybody doesn't. One of my guys. He's married, and he. Well, I ain't gonna put their business out, but let me put my business out. When I was married, one, I was so unhappy in my marriage because of me being broken, me making bad decisions, choices. I was just broken. And I couldn't talk to my wife about certain things. So I had to talk to my best friend about it. And if my male best friend wasn't in my life, I knew I would have cheated. I knew I would have did something outside of what I was supposed to because I didn't have an outlet. I didn't
Mhm.
have no go to. You know what I'm saying? And I was just so miserable. I couldn't go to my family. I couldn't go to this. I couldn't do this. And it's like, you know, can we be honest? Can we be honest in relationships to say, man, I'm hurting. I'm miserable in this marriage. Can we, and being, I'll be honest, I did say that I was unhappy in my marriage and we tried counseling, you know, what is it? Official counseling where you go into the therapist. We had unofficial people where we had couples night and we tried to, make things work. But when you get married for the wrong reasons, even if when you enter in relationships and you know you entering it from an unhealthy place, and then you start to become healthy, then these are the challenges that so many people face. This is what a lot of people, this is why the divorce rate is so high, because people are breaking generational curses after they become married, after they're in relationships and then had, kids and stuff like this. They're breaking it, and it's like, I wouldn't made this choice if I was healthy in the beginning. And so
Yeah.
now trying to navigate that is difficult, it's challenging.
Have you seen Bel Air, the show
Yes.
Bel Air on Peacock? One thing
Hmm.
I really love is Philip and what I can't think of her name.
Vivian.
Vivian. They
Yeah.
do that brutally honest moment, where they're like, okay, I need to be brutally honest. And it prepares the other person, like, okay, I'm gonna hear something that I probably don't want to hear, or that's probably
Right.
gonna make me uncomfortable. But it's something that needs to be out in the open. It's something that we need to discuss. I thought that was like such a good example of how to handle things. And I know in real life, maybe it's not as easy, but I would love to have a marriage like that where I can be so honest to say, you know what, when that guy was flirting with me earlier today, it felt good. It
Mm.
felt really good because I really, you really haven't shown me that kind of attention,
Right,
and
right.
funk in a while. Like I could really see it in his eyes that he was like really feeling me, And lately when you come home, you act like you don't even want to be around me, you know. That's the kind of stuff that marriages need to be able to withstand. But like you said, people don't go to counseling, people don't go to therapy, people don't want to hear what they don't want to hear, you know? So some people can take stuff way too far. Like I could tell if I said something like that, the guy may take it as, oh, so you want to be out here with somebody else? Or you trying to, so what, you
Right, right, right.
holler at the nigga, No, I'm just telling you, that hey, this is it felt good to me because I haven't felt it in a while. Maybe that's something we could work on.
And
So
I
you gotta
think,
be able to receive.
yeah, yeah. I posted on Facebook recently, and I said one of the biggest lessons I learned in therapy that made me start healing is when I start the therapist told me, don't take it personal. How people talk to you, how people treat you, don't take it personal. Sometimes, and most times, it's not a direct reflection of how they feel about you. Sometimes it's what they're going through. And that's the same thing, with unhealthy conversations, or not unhealthy conversations, uncomfortable conversations. Like those brutally honest moments, can I not take it personal?
Hmm.
Because it could easily be taken personal, and then I miss the biggest message where my wife or my significant other is telling me that they're not feeling secure in the marriage because I'm not complimenting them, or I don't look at them, or I don't desire them. They don't feel that desire. And so
Hmm.
what can I do to make you know that I still want you, make you know that I still, mess with you, and all that stuff. And I think you have to not take it personal, as this is something that a person is using as a weapon, but using as a tool to help the relationship work. Now,
Hmm.
I will say I've been in a whole lot of situations where people have used their words as weapons, but I had to be intentional not to react off of that, because my main focus is, how can we meet in the middle to become healthy from this? And so everybody don't have that setup, that makeup, or that thought pattern, or whatever, but I have to create that environment with myself. Sometimes it works, a lot of times it don't, but hey, I'm still
Yeah,
gonna make
that's
it do
why I
what it
think
do.
therapy is good for couples, especially particularly married couples. But even if you're going to be in it for a while, if you have children together, because we all kind of have different barriers in our minds, different triggers and things of that nature. And you typically don't realize you've come across a trigger until you stepped on it.
Yeah.
And then it's a big deal. But you're right. We do have to be able to take ourselves out of the situation to say, hey, recognize that this was a trigger. I probably overreacted. When he told me about that girl, I shouldn't have reacted that way.
Right, right.
I did go off. I shouldn't have talked about his mama And you know, and all of that, yeah, okay, that was a bit much. You have to self-regulate, and then you also have to be open for somebody else to help you through those
Yeah.
triggers, because she may realize it's a trigger before you do. And if she says, you know what, every time you're just like jealous as hell. Every time this guy comments on my page, you're tripping. And that's
Hmm.
nothing. And she probably might recognize it's a trigger for you, but you got to be able to receive that, you know, and be
Some
like, well, maybe I
and
am triggered.
we show went all around the world on something else, but we gonna come back to the topic in a few
Oh,
minutes.
I'm
But
sorry.
no, 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 no. That's why I love this conversation because you don't know where it's gonna take you, where you're gonna go. But
Hmm.
I think that's why a lot of people have trouble in relationships is because they are so used to being the strong one, and it's
Yeah.
difficult receiving constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Because I was dating a young lady, and I was like, hey, unfortunately, you have some selfish tendencies, you know, and I listed a few things and I was like, it's kind of making me feel some type of way. And I'm like, it's raising my concern level. And she said, what are you talking about? She said, ain't nobody else said that about me. So she dismissed what I said because no one else said that about her. And I said, well, I appreciate you listening to me, but I said, when was the last time that you have allowed someone intimately to know you on the same level that I have? She was like, well, it's been some years. And I said, well, it's not fair for you to say no one has said this about you when you haven't allowed them into a space to be able to see these vulnerable spots of you. And so for you to dismiss what I'm saying, it's disappointing, but I'm saying you have to be self-aware or be open to criticism because you say you want to be vulnerable, but then your level of vulnerability is like, I always tell people, what happens when you come across somebody that shows you that your normal is unhealthy? What do?
Mhm. Yeah.
Most people retreat back to what they used to doing. Very few people go ahead and start the changing process.
Hmm.
So
And you know what? I think that's actually a good way of knowing someone who is genuinely looking at you to be a serious partner or mate versus someone who's not. Because the more they're looking at you like that, like, you know what, it's because they're visioning themselves with you.
right, right,
They're thinking, okay, how can this actually work? Hey, I really want this to be more long term, but I realize this may be a problem for me. This is something that's going to cause me hesitation, and it's a lot of doing the work that those other people haven't done, but those other people weren't right for you. Those other people weren't good. There wasn't a good scenario because some people would rather stuff just happen, you know. But you can have a much healthier relationship when people are able to kind of see things in advance. You need those people in your life,
yeah,
you really do. You need them, even if they're friends, but definitely in a romantic partnership because your romantic partner sees parts of you and sides of you that other people don't get to see, you know. But yeah, I
and
think that's a sign. That's an indicator that they're actually trying to see how this thing can work.
it is. I totally agree. And what do you said you mentioned earlier that you have your guards up. So would you say that having your guards up is that permanent? Is that seasonal, or is that a temporary thing?
I don't know. I'm I'm gonna say I wouldn't say it's permanent because then that means that there's no getting around it. I'm not above reproach, right? But it's definitely been a fixed thing. It's been around for some time. I'm 40 years old, so I have to have had some guards up, or else I would have just jumped in the marriage a long time ago. you
Right,
know.
right, right.
So yeah, it's it's been around for a while. I won't say it's permanent, but I also won't say it's temporary. I don't think it goes into either box.
how do you define being ready for something? Since we talked about the I got my guards up and I'm not ready for whatever. So what does being ready looks like to you?
I think being ready means you've done the work, right? You've looked at yourself, you know what you need and what you're looking for. Um, and then you know how to recognize what's good for you and what's not good for you. I think that's the ready part, you know. That's why I say I have some guards, but I could be ready if the person um if if I felt comfortable in it, I could definitely be ready because I realize what I want, right? I know what my issues are. So if somebody calls me on something, I could be like, yeah, you're right. I do that. Because I already know me. I know
Right,
where I
right.
fall short. I also know where I excel. But I'm at a point where we could be having conversations like, look, this is not gonna work. It doesn't have to be contentious. We don't have to fight or argue or any of that, but I can just tell, like, you know what, with your personality and my personality, this is just not going to work because of A, B, and C. That's where I wonder if I have too many guards. Maybe I maybe I pick up on too many things, but I really don't think so. I really don't. I think I just realize what works for me and what doesn't. So I think that's the work, doing the work to really analyze yourself, common patterns, like, okay, in every relationship, if you have a particular problem or if you had the last three boyfriends or girlfriends tell you the same thing, you know, okay, that's something you need to think about. He's not just saying it. Apparently, some other people recognize that as well. So that's what I think it is. Being ready is doing the work.
So you
Really
said
know.
that I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying you said that you know what works for you. So
Hmm.
in knowing what works for you, does that include dang, I had the word. Does knowing what works for you, does that include grace? I mean, not grace, but the growing process as far as, being uncomfortable, I guess, when it comes to friendships, relationships and stuff like that? Or is it just, this is what I like, my type, my preference, and that's what works for me?
No, yeah, it does because there are growing pains, right? You just met this person, they just met you. Y'all have lived a full life before each other. So yeah, there will be growing pains. Again, you're not gonna know. I'm not gonna know I don't like something until after you do it, you know. And then it's like, I didn't like that. That didn't feel good. Or vice versa. I might do something and you don't like that. You know what? When you posted that, that made me feel like you were thirst trapping. I didn't like that.
Right, right.
Okay, you know what? I didn't even think about it like that, but now I know. So yeah, yeah, you definitely gonna have growing pains. You can't get around it. You can't around it because you're two different people.
I feel you. I feel you. I feel like, being defining being ready for something is just consistently ready to say yes on something. No
You think
matter.
so? No, I don't think so. Because you're not gonna say yes to everything.
Well, when I say yes, I mean yes to major questions as far as like whatever I say I'm going to be committed to, am I ready to say yes? And just because I'm ready to say yes, it doesn't mean that I'm always going to say yes. Because I could be in a committed relationship with somebody who I just made a bad choice and then I got to let it go. But ready for me is just saying that I'm putting myself in a position where I don't have excess luggage that will deter me from if
Mhm.
things get uncomfortable. You know how sometimes people get into relationships, dating stages that, things get uncomfortable and they gone, they'll
Mhm.
ghost you or they'll, whatever, whatever. And I'm like, in moments of uncomfortableness, like if someone triggers me and it shuts me down, like I'm not gonna ghost it. I'm not gonna let it go. I'm gonna consistently say yes. Like here is a trigger that this triggered me in this conversation or in this moment or when you did this and let's communicate. Normally if you did something to me, like we ain't got to talk about it. I'm done with it. Like, and from a man's point of view, and it's just my experience, a lot of times, if a man ain't calling a woman, they ain't talking no way. So if I do
Mhm.
something outside of your preview, like, all right, we done with it. I ain't got to tell you why we stopped talking or what made me feel uncomfortable. It's like, so that's what I mean about me saying yes, like uncomfortable moments. Like I don't feel like being vulnerable, but I know I need to be vulnerable for the betterment of this relationship or this dating ship. And so, yes,
Mhm.
I'm going to say yes in that moment and keep doing it. But it ain't, yeah, hopefully that made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Sometimes I'll be going all around the world. My bad. So if I guess I only got a couple more questions, but what do you know what caused you to have your guards up?
Um, well, I think I'm an over analytical type to begin with, right? And so I think long and hard about most decisions,
Okay.
you know. Um, so that's probably a guard right there. Outside of that, it's just disappointment. Disappointment, you hate to put so much of yourself into a scenario and then it doesn't work out. You have to go through that whole disappointment phase. And I like to avoid that disappointment phase. So, I have guards to stop me from being disappointment. If I see disappointment coming down the pipeline or in the future, I'm like, you know what, let me just stop it right now before it gets to that point. So that's it. I haven't had like the, I've heard some horror stories of people in their relationships. And so to what you asked earlier, does it help or hurt? I think those guards stopped me from having a lot of those just straight up horror stories. I mean,
Right.
I've had some bad moments, but I mean, it could get really bad. It could get really bad. So you need some of those guards, and that's it. It's just trying to avoid disappointment.
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. I thank you for blessing me with I think you for blessing the podcast. I knew the conversation would be amazing. So I just got one more question, but I'll answer what caused me to have my guards up. Not being honest with people that made me feel some type of way. Um, I think over the years, like when you talk about people who have horror stories, like I got stories, I got funny stories, horror stories, like
Mhm.
all kind of stories. And sometimes I've just become numb to the bull crap. And so for so long, like one of my biggest flaws that I say is that sometimes when I get triggered, I go into isolation mode, which causes me to be in separation mode. And
Mhm.
so I separate myself from my friends, family, just until I get my stuff together because all I know is me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's this. Well, I ain't gonna even say that, but Yo Gotti had a rap where he said, on what's happening, he said, I haven't met nobody who could protect my heart like me.
Yeah.
That's one of the realest statements that
Hmm.
I say to myself. Like, you can try to tell people how to protect your heart, how to guard your heart, what to do, but a lot of people are so selfish. And my thing is, if I'm in a relationship with you, let's say me and you in a relationship, my number one priority is you. I hope your number one priority is me. So if we in a relationship with each other, we never have to be worried about self because the other person has our best interests at heart. They build up enough equity that I trust that I believe in that I'm comfortable with that. And so man, you can tell people all day long how to do something, but if they are not in a position where they're able to receive it, they want to do it, they ain't gonna do it. And
Yeah,
my name
that's
ain't Keith Sweat. I ain't gonna beg you. Mm-mm.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I was gonna add something too, and I think I done forgot
Okay, it's gonna come
what
back
I
to
was
me.
gonna say.
Well,
But I can't remember. Go ahead.
okay. Well, my final question, then I know that question is gonna come back to you. But the final question is, what is something, or if you want to give two, you can. What is something that you talked about earlier as far as feeling comfortable, and then your guards would be let down? What is something that you have experienced that has caused you to let your guards down?
Um, somebody who, well, two things. Somebody who does what they say they're gonna do, and I'll even go further, do things that I don't even ask to do. And then the second thing is someone who shows they're paying attention. I tell you, it is so refreshing. Like I went out with this guy one time, right? And when I was looking at the menu, I might have said something about a dessert, but I just mentioned it. It wasn't like I wanted it. I didn't say I wanted it or anything. It was just like, oh, they got a chocolate brownie. That sounds good, whatever. You know, I didn't even really know he was paying close attention. Like I knew we were talking to each other, but I just didn't think that was anything to be kept. And then later on, he was like, "Oh, didn't you want to get that brownie,
Right,
whatever?"
right,
It's a small example of just showing where someone was actually listening, even when I didn't think they were listening or paying that close attention. And of course, you want that on a bigger scale. But like if I say something 2 or 3 weeks ago, just in a conversation, and then later on you say something about it, that to me makes me like, okay, this guy's actually really paying attention.
right.
It makes me feel like, okay, he might actually care, not just from a physical standpoint, not just looking at me and wanting to laugh or whatever. He might actually care. And then, like I said, doing what you say you're gonna do and doing stuff that I don't even ask. I don't know. Not saying it has to cost anything, but if my grass is just overgrown or whatever, and it's like,
Right.
what? The guy ain't cut your grass yet. I got a homeboy that cut grass. I'm gonna call him, and get him to come over there, or just seeing a need and meeting it without
Mhm.
having to ask, because I'm kind of hard on that. I don't ask anybody for anything. I feel like whatever needs to be done, I'll take care of it. I'll do it myself. That's what I've been doing. Right. And that's what I'm going to do. Because people, they come and they go. But like you said, I can always trust myself. Right.
Right.
But when somebody comes in and they do something, then it's like, oh, it's refreshing because I am so used to just handling it that it's like, okay, well, this person might be useful. They may be somebody that you want to keep around. Yeah.
Yeah, I could dig it. I could dig it. One
Hmm.
of the things that always allows me to get my guards down is when somebody is open to something. I think, sometimes like you can meet somebody and well, I just give an example. The last relationship I was in, when we first started talking, I was like, hey, I've never flown before. And she'd be like, what? You ain't flown before? Like, you almost 40 years old and you ain't flown? Woo, 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 woo. In that moment, I could have reacted, been in my feelings, and like, hey, this attack, whatever, whatever. Like, felt some type of way and reacted off of that. That was if I was closed minded, if I was closed hearted. But I was open to it. I was like, nah, we just laughed it off, she, whatever, whatever. And so in that relationship, like I'd been to 3 different countries, flown all over the United States, like because I was open for that experience. Oftentimes, people will come into your life and they will allow you to experience new environments, new experiences. But are you open to it? Are you open to receiving and enjoying the moment or the moments? And a lot of times we close minded and we close hearted, so we can't go to the next step with a person because I'm letting you know like there's some consistent man out here or there's some faithful man out here, but I'm not open. I don't believe that. I'm not open to that. I'm closed minded. I'm closed hearted. So I'm like, nah, that's turning me off. So for me, that can have my guards down when um because I'm a vibe. So if I go out with somebody, like I'm going to do something that you ain't experienced in a minute. Are
Mm.
you open to letting loose with that? You know what I'm saying? Like being vulnerable. And I ain't talking about no heavy stuff. I'm talking about just can we laugh? Because most people, one of the misconceptions about me is people think I'm serious. I love to laugh. Like I'm gonna have you in tears. Like that's just what we are. But people are not open to. They only open to the photograph that they have of you. I need
Right.
somebody to take a video of me because
Right.
it's different levels, it's
Right.
different time steps of me and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I can agree. That does help when you're experiencing or learning something new. You can show me something different, even if it's like I said, even if it's a part of me, a side of me that I didn't realize. If you're showing me something different than
right,
what
right.
I've seen 1,000 people do, or just something that I have only seen maybe once or twice, and like,
Mm.
like they do exist.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, I'm not gonna hold you, but I thank you for blessing the podcast. I hope that you are a guest again in the near future. And we gonna we gonna make it do what it do. So we thank you for being with us, and we are
Well, thank you for having me.
I appreciate you, man.